Since the beginning of 2021, Major League Baseball teams have used the shift over 100,000 times. We've seen players like Joey Gallo come out and say that, yeah, he understands the defensive strategies, but he doesn't understand how he's supposed to hit a double or a triple when 6 guys are standing in the outfield. Then you have other players like Joey's former Little League teammate Bryce Harper saying, just if you can't beat the shift, use the other side of the field. Now, I did put out a poll because I wanted to see what the opinion of the community was, and the majority of you guys agree with Joey Gallo that banning the shift is a good idea. Now, I understand the other perspective, the fact that these are professional hitters who are being paid millions of dollars. You should be able to go the other way. Like, Yordan Alvarez is the perfect anti-shift example. He was shifted 90% of the time, but if we take a look at his spray chart, I mean, this dude doesn't care if you had 27 outfielders. He's going to hit it wherever he wants. But in today's video, we're not going to focus on guys like Yordan Alvarez, who are basically some of the best hitters we've ever seen. We're going to talk about hitters that benefit the most from the shift being banned, hitters that honestly could be MVP type players just because the shift is gone. And yes, we will talk about Joey Gallo later in the video, so don't go anywhere. Now, the first player I'm going to bring up real quick, Carlos Santana. The only reason why I'm bringing him up is because he was the most shifted hitter in all of baseball a season ago. 98.3% of his at-bats when he's hitting lefty was shifted against. Corey Seager is one of the most fascinating examples of a player that could go back to his prime self with the shift being banned in 2023. So if we take a look at his stats against the shift, he was shifted almost 93% of the time, and there's a stat called WOBA that is basically a fancy on-base percentage. Here are the rules of thumb for WOBA. If you have anything above a 340 WOBA, that is considered above average. So Corey Seager having a 327 WOBA means that he was below average against the shift. But if we just move over, I know it was only 47 plate appearances. Corey Seager, when the shift wasn't on, was excellent. He had a 397 WOBA, and honestly, that's really all I have to see. Corey Seager is going to be a monster in the following season. And one more stat I should tell you guys, Corey Seager is the #1 hitter in baseball since 2020 in hits taken away by the shift. He has 50 plus hits, just gone. Kyle Tucker legitimately has a chance of being MVP in 2023 because if we take a look, he was shifted, let's just call it 91% of the time. He had a 336 WOBA when the shift was on and a 463 WOBA when the shift was not on. And whether that's because runners were in scoring position or the other team just decided not to deploy the shift, when it wasn't on, Kyle Tucker was, my dude was prime Barry Bonds. Now, because we just talked about Kyle Tucker possibly becoming an MVP caliber hitter in 2023, let's stay with MVPs. Shohei Ohtani, he had a 365 WOBA, so still really good. Shohei Ohtani, again, the fact that he was a top 4 Cy Young finisher and he was shifted 88% of the time and still managed to have a 365 WOBA, he's the greatest player I've ever seen. But without the shift, in 76 plate appearances, my dude had a 403 WOBA. Shohei Ohtani, he's basically, I don't know, he's not from Earth. The reason why I bring up Kyle Tucker and Shohei Ohtani back to back is because they're both stolen base threats. A big reason why I love that the shift is going to get banned is because, let's face it, the shift mainly takes away singles from left-handed hitters. So those little bloopers that would normally drop or the line drives that are smoked to shallow right field, instead of being caught, those are going to land for singles or doubles, and that gives more opportunities to players like Kyle Tucker and Shohei Ohtani to steal second base. I don't know about you guys, but it's way more entertaining to see Shohei try and steal second as opposed to him getting out because there was a third baseman playing right field. Now, you guys know I'm a Cleveland fanboy, but the facts are Jose Ramirez is going to be even better in 2023 because he was shifted 94% of the time. And if we take a look at his external stats like WOBA, again, that is a fancy on-base percentage. Anything above 340 is good. So he was at 380. This was pretty much the defensive arrangement every time Jose Ramirez was batting as a left-handed hitter. So he was pulling things pretty much all the time. He had a 380 WOBA with the shift and a 428 WOBA without the shift. Again, these are smaller sample sizes because, realistically, you're just not going to not shift when Jose Ramirez is batting left-handed. The smart thing to do is shift, and that's what they did. So the sample size is going to be small without the shift. But when you see a single stat jump 30, 40, 60, 70 points, Kyle Tucker, Jose Ramirez, we can understand why the shift was so prevalent across baseball. Again, teams used it over 100,000 times over the last 2 seasons alone. It's because it works. And now that they're not going to be able to use it, players like J-Ram, Ohtani, Kyle Tucker, and others, they're going to have a much better season. So we've talked a lot about left-handed hitters. Let's talk about some righties. This is Byron Buxton. We can see that most of the teams, it was 78.8% of the time, so not the same amount of Kyle Tucker or even someone like Carlos Santana, which was pretty much 100% of the time, but in large part, there was 3 infielders every time Byron Buxton was up to hit. He had a 312, not very good WOBA with the shift on, with the shift off, and 81 plate appearances, 517. That is cartoonish. Those are video game numbers. Byron Buxton, if he can stay healthy, honestly, him and Kyle Tucker, they are for sure my dark horse picks to win MVP in 2023, if we're not talking about my friend Joey Gallo. We'll get to Joey in just a second, but some other righties that were shifted a bunch. 78% of the time that Jorge Soler was up, he was having 3 infielders on one side. So the last 2 guys that we've talked about, Soler and Byron Buxton, they can be exciting. I mean, we're talking about Soler, who won the 2021 World Series MVP with the Braves, so he is fully capable of being a productive hitter with this shift on, but with it off, I mean, the sky's the limit. Now, here's a perfect example of I don't know what 2023 holds for a guy like Marcus Semien, who is shifted 75% of the time. That is quite a lot. His WOBA went from 317 to 320, and that's a lot of plate appearances. 179 is a good sample size. His WOBA didn't really change, so whether the shift was on or off, it didn't really matter for a guy like Semien, but in 2023, maybe his mindset shifts and maybe his mechanics are going to be better suited for a guy that can pull the ball. And now that this guy is going to have to go back to playing second base, I mean, you can still play up the middle, but now you have a normal third base spot, a normal shortstop spot. That gap is going to be open. Marcus Semien, he's going to have more opportunities to get singles and then stolen bases and give his team a better chance to win because runners in scoring position, it's going to happen more often. Now, one more thing I want to mention. Earlier in the video, I talked about how Corey Seager was the #1 hitter in baseball in hits taken away by the shift. A couple other guys that were shifted against a lot in 2022 and are in that same conversation in the top 5 of hits taken away. We have Anthony Rizzo, so he's going to be a whole lot better, and Matt Olson. Matt Olson, in my opinion, has a chance of being a 270, 280 hitter all over again like he did a few seasons ago when he had 36 home runs, a 276 batting average. He's going to get more base hits. His on-base percentage, his batting average, his OPS plus, they're all going to skyrocket. Even players like Kyle Schwarber and Cody Bellinger. I know that Schwarber had a good 2022, whereas Cody Bellinger did not. Maybe the shift being banned is going to make Bellinger 10% better. Regardless, they were both shifted 90.5% of the time. Can they get helped out by it being banned? Probably. Now let's go ahead and talk about Joey Gallo, probably the most controversial hitter in baseball, simply because if we take a look, he was shifted 90% of the time, and he was actually worse when the shift wasn't on. Why is that? Well, if you have not watched Joey Gallo play baseball, sometimes the shift doesn't matter because he just doesn't make contact. But I'm going to go ahead and show a few examples of Joey Gallo legitimately getting hosed by the shift. I'm talking about exit velos of 95 plus miles an hour, and they're just going straight into a third baseman or second baseman that is playing shallow right field, or another outfielder that has shifted over to right field. Joey Gallo, I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be a 310 hitter. I mean, I will say he is hitting 308 in his career without the shift. And baseball is such a hard sport that it's not as easy as saying, hey, just go the other way. And actually, if you take a look at Joey's career stats and his splits, he's actually better pulling the ball than he is going the other way, because professional pitchers, whether you like it or not, they're also paid a lot of money to hone in on your weaknesses, so they're not going to throw Joey Gallo sinkers outside where he can take it the other way. They are going to spam fastballs up and in, and Joey's either going to pull it for a home run, line into the shift, or he's going to strike out or possibly take a walk. Again, he's a 3 outcome hitter. Now, in my opinion, this guy is going to be a lot of fun. So Seth Brown, he was shifted basically 90% of the time. He had a 314 WOBA with the shift and a 393 WOBA without the shift. Yes, it was 63 plate appearances, but Seth Brown, he's entering his prime as a power hitter. I mean, the dude had 26 home runs and a 116 OPS plus with 11 stolen bases. So if Seth Brown is able to get a few more bloop base hits or line drives that land in this shallow right field gap or up the middle, I mean, he basically has a whole new chance at life. He can be a major league hitter again without worrying about people saying, just go the other way. Why would I do that when I can smoke a 110 mile per hour single, I mean, in the shallow right field gap, and then it skips to the fence, now I get a double? That's way more efficient than trying to go the other way for a bloop. But I don't know. I guess fans know better than professional baseball players. So in the comments, do you think that this video is absolute blasphemy? Do you think that I am just talking out of my you-know-what? Or do you think that these players do have a chance of being even better now that the shift is bye-bye. Some of you might be wondering why I didn't talk about Juan Soto or Jeff McNeil. It's because they're just like Yordan. They already beat the shift enough as it is. So considering there won't be any shift, I wouldn't be surprised if Jeff McNeil hit 500.